Magnifico crushes an old man's dream in front of his family, and the internet laughed at him. A cartoon wolf who is literally the physical embodiment of death corners a cat in a cave, and people list him as one of the best movie villains of the last decade. This is the studio that gave us Scar, Maleficent, and a genuinely terrifying child-hunting judge in Frollo. But somewhere in the last 10 years, that reputation quietly started falling apart. Meanwhile, DreamWorks has been over here quietly building one of the most consistent villain rosters in animation. So today, we're breaking down exactly what DreamWorks keeps getting right that Disney keeps fumbling.
Tragic villains. Here's the thing about a tragic villain. Sympathy isn't the goal. The goal is making the audience understand why someone broke, while never letting them off the hook for what they did with that break. DreamWorks has this figured out. Disney, lately, does not. Take Drago Bludvist from How to Train Your Dragon 2. His whole worldview comes from losing his village, his family, and his arm to a dragon attack as a kid. That's a legitimately awful origin.
To see my village burned, my family taken.
But the movie doesn't let that backstory function as an excuse. When Hiccup calls him out, points out that this isn't really about protecting people anymore, it's about power, Drago doesn't argue. He basically agrees.
I know what it is to live in fear.
The trauma explains him. It doesn't excuse him. That distinction is the entire trick of writing a good tragic villain, and DreamWorks nails it without breaking a sweat. And then the franchise does something even smarter. It gives you Grimmel in the third movie, a villain with almost the opposite motivation. No sob story. He hunts Night Furies to extinction because doing it once made him a hero, and he liked how that felt.
So let's get to the point. I am the Night Fury killer.
Drago is broken by grief. Grimmel is corrupted by praise. Same franchise, same species of enemy, two completely different psychological engines. That's not an accident. That's a studio that understands tragedy is a spectrum, not a template you paste onto every antagonist. Now let's talk about King Magnifico from Wish. On paper, this guy has one of the best villain setups Disney's written in years. He lost his home and family to selfish people, so he built an entire kingdom around the idea of protecting others from wishes going wrong, in exchange for owning those wishes himself. That's a genuinely great foundation for a slow, tragic descent into control and paranoia. And then the movie just doesn't do that. The backstory gets mentioned, sure, but it never actually shapes anything. The moment a magic evil book shows up, Magnifico goes from charming ruler with mild control issues to cartoonish tyrant in about one scene. There's no gradual unraveling. No moment where you watch fear curdle into cruelty in real time. It's just, evil book exists now, so he's evil now. It's the same complaint you'll find repeated everywhere people talk about this movie. The backstory is there, but it's decorative. It's a villain concept with the engine ripped out.
Complicated loyalties. Some villains aren't supposed to be simple. They're supposed to think they're the hero of their own story, and the writing has to sell that belief convincingly enough that the audience actually wrestles with it. DreamWorks pulled this off decades ago with Ramses in The Prince of Egypt. Before he's a pharaoh oppressing a nation, he's shown as Moses' brother, someone who genuinely loves him. That relationship isn't a footnote, it's the emotional spine of the whole film. So when Moses comes back demanding freedom for the Hebrews, Ramses isn't just an obstacle. He's a man trapped by everything he was raised to believe about strength and legacy, choosing pride over the person he loves most. You feel the tragedy of that choice because the movie spent real time making you feel the brotherhood first. Compare that to Namaari from Raya and the Last Dragon, which is probably the single most argued about wasted potential villain of the last few years. The setup is right there. Two daughters of rival leaders, mirrored arcs, a betrayal that sets the whole plot in motion. Namaari steals the dragon gem to protect her people, which, fine. That's a workable motivation. The problem is, the film never actually sits with that conflict. We don't get her internal struggle in any meaningful way for most of the runtime. And worse, she never really owns what she's done.
There's a moment after a companion is killed where she flatly deflects blame instead of taking any accountability. So when the ending asks Raya and the audience to just trust her again, it doesn't feel earned. It feels like the movie's skipping the hardest, most interesting part of the story to get to a tidy conclusion. Ramesses earns his tragedy through screen time and relationship building. Namaari gets told she deserves forgiveness. That's the difference between writing a conflicted villain and just labeling one complicated.
Subscribe, because you would not believe how Disney actually performed better than DreamWorks in next section. Twist villains. Disney's track record here is genuinely messy. We already covered Hans falling apart under scrutiny, and Callaghan's reveal having no runway to land, which makes it almost funny that Disney also made the best twist villain in animation history, Turbo, King Candy from Wreck-It Ralph. The movie isn't just hiding a fact, it's hiding an entire identity.
No way!
And that identity ties directly into the film's central theme. Turbo is a forgotten arcade racer so desperate to be remembered that he hijacked another game's code and buried a little girl's memory of who she really is. That's the exact same fear driving every other character in the movie. Ralph's fear of being forgotten, Vanellope's fear of never being seen, reflected back through the villain. The reveal recontextualizes almost everything you watched, instead of just swapping nice guy for secretly evil guy. That's the difference between a twist and a switch.
So can DreamWorks compete here? Not really. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, built a whole movie around Chelsea being a secret villain, and the twist basically died before release because the trailer spoiled it. If you saw any marketing at all, you already knew Chelsea was a Kraken working an angle, so the reveal lands as, yeah, we know, instead of a gut punch. Great concept, sabotaged by the marketing department not trusting the story enough to let it breathe.
But DreamWorks do got closer with Professor Marmalade in The Bad Guys, a squeaky clean guinea pig who turns out to be the actual mastermind manipulating a crew of criminals into taking the fall for him. It's a solid twist, and it plays with the cute equals good assumption well, but it's not tied to the movie's emotional core the way Turbo is. It's a fun genre trick, not a gut punch. Good twist, not a Turbo.
Villains who are just having a great time being evil. Not every villain needs a tragic backstory. Sometimes the funniest, most rewatchable choice a studio can make is giving you someone who is evil purely because it's fun for them. And DreamWorks has fully leaned into this lane in a way Disney mostly abandoned. Jack Horner in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is the clearest recent example. He grew up with a stable, loving family and a mansion.
I never had much as a kid. Just loving parents and stability in a mansion and a thriving baked goods enterprise for me to inherit. Useless crap like that.
There is no trauma to point to here. He just wants ultimate magical power because he's a petty, greedy little man who's decided the whole world exists to serve his ambition. He treats his own henchmen as disposable. He's such a lost cause that a good-natured, cricket-adjacent conscience character basically gives up trying to save his soul within one scene. And that's the joke. The movie knows exactly what it built, and it's having a blast with it.
Go back further, and you get Lord Farquaad in the original Shrek. Short-tempered, vain, willing to send an entire army of fairy tale creatures to their deaths just to build a perfect kingdom with himself at the center. Nobody watching Shrek needed Farquaad's childhood trauma explained to enjoy hating him. Now put Hans from Frozen next to either of them. Hans might be the most argued about villain reveal in modern Disney, and not in a good way. The problem people keep circling back to? The twist genuinely doesn't hold up once you think about it for more than 10 seconds. For the entire first 2/3 of the movie, Hans acts like an active-y, decent guy. He helps Anna, he tries to protect the kingdom, he even stops a guard from finishing off Elsa. If his real plan is to inherit the throne by letting the sisters die, several of his own on-screen choices work directly against that plan. Then, post-reveal, his personality does an abrupt 180 that a lot of the writing never bothered to set up. And then he makes the single most predictable villain mistake in the book, gloating about victory a full scene before he's actually secured it. He's not a bad villain because he's evil. He's a weak villain because the writing can't decide what kind of evil he's supposed to be.
The villain nobody else was brave enough to write. Death from Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
well.
This is widely considered one of the best animated villains in the last decade, and it's not close. Death isn't just another bounty hunter chasing Puss for a payday. He's furious that Puss has been careless with all 9 of his lives, while other beings don't get any at all. That's not generic evil. That's a specific, thematically loaded grudge that ties directly into what the whole movie is actually about, learning to value the one life you have.
I just love the smell of fear.
He's terrifying in a way most family movie villains simply aren't allowed to be. Quiet, patient, genuinely unbeatable with a sword, and somehow still funny and even a little bit fair in his own code. When Puss finally lets go of his reckless bravado and starts actually valuing his remaining life, Death doesn't get defeated. He just doesn't have a reason to come for him anymore. That's such a mature, unusual way to resolve a villain arc in a kids' movie, and it's part of why this character keeps getting brought up as one of the best things DreamWorks has ever made.
Compare that to the villains Disney's most proud of historically. Maleficent gets impaled, Scar gets torn apart by his own allies, Chernabog slinks away when the sun comes up. Those are great, iconic villains, but none of them are doing anything conceptually new. DreamWorks looked at villain who can be permanently defeated and said, what if the villain is the one thing in the universe nobody defeats, and the real victory is learning to live with that?
Hey fans! Subscribe to the channel. Help us 1,000 subscribers.